Good evening. Get this on. Good evening and welcome to the May 1st County Council meeting. Mr. Kapoor will lead us in the pledge. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will we please have a moment of silence? Ms. Shafnisky, will you call the roll?
Mr. Brown? Mr. Corpora?
Here.
Mr. Giovanni?
Here.
Mr. Fredo?
Here.
Mr. Heckman? Ms. Keegan? Here. Mr. Kraft?
Here.
Ms. Fargo Hefner?
Here.
Mr. Warren?
Here.
All present except for Mr. Brown and Mr. Heckman.
Thank you. Could I please have a motion to approve the minutes
Make
of
a motion
April
by
17th?
acclamation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I abstain, I was not here.
Is there any courtesy of the floor? You get 5 minutes. Jennifer Zingales, if you just state your name and where you're from, your town. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jennifer Zingales, and I live in Palmer Township. Good evening, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to address the council this evening. My name is Jennifer Zingales, and my family and I are lifelong voting residents of Northampton County. I come before you on behalf of my brother, my family, and all the families who have had to walk the painful path of dealing with the coroner's office during some of the darkest moments of our lives, the sudden, tragic loss of a loved one. On the night of January 8th, our lives changed forever. My brother ended his life in the basement of the home he shared with my parents, the same where, for 24 years, he fought bravely through the highs and lows of mental illness. That night was a blur, a nightmare we could not wake from. We trusted the police department and the Northampton County Coroner's Office to help guide us, to do right by us, and to preserve our rights as citizens and as victims of an unfathomable tragedy. As part of their duties, they took photos, examined the area where he lived and died, and asked us deeply personal questions about his final days, his struggles, and his history of mental health challenges. We answered openly and honestly, hoping to provide anything that could make sense of the senseless. Before they left, they asked for his phone, guessed at possible passwords, and said they had people who could access it. They also collected a notebook, he was an avid journaler, and a bag of his medications. I remember asking 2 simple questions. Was there anything else we should know? And when would we expect his belongings back, especially in case he left a note that might help us to find peace? The young women who came that night said it would take 1 to 2 months. We received the official coroner-issued death certificate by Friday, January 10th. The cause listed simply as suicide by gunshot wound. Weeks passed. My heart ached with the need to know if he had left us anything, words, explanations, a goodbye. I called the coroner's office to follow up. That's when I learned, to my horror, that among the items collected was a self-written obituary. No one had told us this before. No one gave us the chance to honor his final wishes, to share his words as the world intended. When I asked for the return of his items, I was told I would never get them back. To the coroner's office, they were just evidence, a handwriting sample to be kept indefinitely. But to our family, they were his final words, his final legacy. When I asked to speak to the coroner directly, I was told I could have a copy, but the originals would never be returned, only if he deemed it appropriate after the investigation concluded. I reached out to the county executive's office twice for help. They promised to look into it. They never followed up. Desperate for answers, I contacted Representative Emmerich's office. His team intervened and reported that the coroner again said he might return the items when the investigation was complete, but no firm promises. I asked for procedures in writing. There were none. Finally, after great effort, my father and I met with the coroner. That meeting was devastating. Rather than offering compassion, he made it his mission to belittle and intimidate us, suggesting that perhaps my brother's death was not even a suicide, insisting we might need a court order to get the gun back, and accusing me falsely of being angry and threatening. He contradicted previous assurances and refused to provide any written policies, federal guidelines, or protocols to support his actions. Eventually, he returned my brother's phone, dead, unopened, and possibly out of spite, stating that if we had given him more time, maybe they could have accessed it. But he admitted it might take months, years, or maybe never. He said I would receive a copy of the letter from the county solicitor stating that he followed federal law, but no such letter has ever arrived. In my own research, I found that under Pennsylvania law, the coroner must keep safely property, but it may be claimed by a legal representative. Nowhere does the law say that the coroner may keep personal property forever or deny grieving families the right to claim what is theirs. According to the Pennsylvania Federation of Coroner website and 1955 Act 130, I also learned that the release of personal property is at the discretion of the local coroner and that Northampton County Coroner's Office is not accredited by any national or international organization, as the coroner falsely shared. Many other counties in Pennsylvania, such as Adams, Allegheny, Cambria, Lehigh, Lancaster, Washington, and Westmoreland, but not ours. In fact, our neighboring Lehigh County has a coroner's website, which has a mission statement that includes its desire to be accountable directly to the citizens of the county, and it offers an address to pick up loved ones' belongings and does not state by any law that they should be kept forever. They also offer an opportunity to view the report when complete. I have received no such opportunity. Frustrated, I turned to Councilwoman Kelly Keegan, who urged me to continue researching. That work only deepened my belief that in Northampton County, grieving families are not treated with the dignity, compassion, or respect they deserve. Instead, we are at the mercy of a coroner who operates without clear policy, without transparency, and without basic human decency. He continues to claim that he must keep the originals in case someone someday questions his death. I stand before you that my mother has dementia at Graysdale. She doesn't know he died. We believe he committed suicide. No one's going to ask or question his death. But I stand before you today to say the only thing that needs to be questioned here is the behavior of the coroner himself. Therefore, I respectfully request that my brother's original belongings be returned to my family promptly. I request that the Northampton County investigates the practices and procedures of the coroner's office, and that the county ensures that grieving families are treated with humanity and not as adversaries. Families like mine deserve better. My brother deserves better. Northampton County deserves better. I have this copy that I'll provide to you. It offers my research as well as my contact information to return our belongings. I thank you.
We give it to Jen. And is there anyone else who wishes to speak to courtesy of the floor? With that, we will ask Mr. McClure if he has a report. Before you come, I do wish to offer my condolences to your family.
And because everyone, irrespective of whether those answers ultimately bring peace to the folks who are asking the questions, they deserve those answers. And the coroner is here tonight. If anyone has any questions for him about this, I would be happy to give him this time to answer them. Does anyone have any questions for him? Okay.
Good evening. Mr. Gafredo wanted to ask a question as well. I think his hand went up
I guess my first question would be, with everything that was said, what would be your rebuttal or your claim or your defense to what the resident has been saying, that, you know, it's personal property, to everybody's knowledge, it's not a crime, and they would like their property back?
So, with all due respect to the family and their situation, I understand that. I think she mischaracterized pretty grossly my behavior and how I dealt with her family and how I deal with every family, and I've been doing that for a long time. My first responsibility is to the decedent, and when we're investigating the death of any individual, it may be necessary for us to collect evidence. A suicide note is recognized as evidence. Evidence is retained by the coroner's office, and it's generally retained indefinitely. I have never made any promises to her. First of all, my first initial conversation, I didn't know any of the details of what she was claiming. So until I had the opportunity to investigate it, I told her I would get back to her, and I did do that. And ultimately, I met with her and her father, and I explained what I thought was in quite detail, but she was very angry at me, and I'm not certain why, other than because she wasn't getting her way. I did my best. I have with me today, and I'll give each of you a copy if I'm permitted. This here is a letter from the Pennsylvania State Coroners Association solicitor, Attorney Timothy Urick, who defines in this letter that it is evidence and that I have every legal right to collect it and hold it. We've been doing that practice for 33 years. The reason why that is collected is, surprisingly, we have people that come forth and contest how or why a person died. And when we have that, is a piece of evidence that could be used to explain, the circumstances or justify and explain his death. So it's retained as evidence. Touch DNA could be done on it. Handwriting analysis could be done on it. When I became aware of this, the family was immediately given a copy of everything we had, and that's how we handled the situation.
And I think Mrs. Gallus is, I think you conduct yourself in a professional manner here. I will say I've had many interactions with our current coroner. He's very professional. And I don't know enough about the process because I'm not a coroner, nor do I deal with it as much, but when it's deemed not a crime or there's no foul play suspected, at that point, is it still evidence?
It is.
Evidence of what, if there's no
Well,
evidence to what?
suicide's actually in the Crimes Code.
Okay.
And it's evidence that this, in my opinion, was a suicide. So when, we issued the death certificate, I try to do it as quickly as possible as to not inconvenience the family so they can continuously proceed. But that doesn't mean the investigation is done. With reference to the cell phone, she was very anxious to get that back because there was possibly suicide ideation or previous attempt notes on that. And when we do forensic analysis of a phone, we will unlock it for families if they don't know the code. The unfortunate thing is, to explain that, it's not a quick process. So when you're dealing with Apple devices, Gray Key's the software used. When we're dealing with Android devices, Cellbrite. Sometimes a phone could sit on and run for days, weeks, months. It all depends. So for those of you who have Apple phones, you will see that you get pushed updates every once in a while. So you just came out with 18.1.4.1, I think it is. So that's the newest update. What happens is when a phone updates, it makes it very difficult. It closes back doors so you can't get in. So the fact that she wanted the phone back, I stopped all of our work and I gave it back to her. So,
Question I had,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Lysick, why is the property kept or kept perhaps indefinitely? Especially, I don't know. I understand there's case law from what you just provided us, but in this situation, if there's a suicide note in itself that is important to the family, why is it perhaps kept indefinitely? I understand the DNA aspect of things and how investigations may reopen at times. Cut and dry cases, however, there are plenty of those too. I'm just wondering why property is kept perhaps indefinitely.
So that's in the national standards. It's a recommendation. That doesn't mean that everyone has to follow that. And unfortunately, in our society, you can have national standards, you can have policies, and people, some agencies won't follow that and some do. I have been following that policy since 1992 and have had no problems. It's a procedure that we do. We do not keep personal belongings. So there's a difference between evidence, personal belongings, and short-term evidence. And personal belongings are always returned to the family as quickly as possible. Sometimes they don't want to come pick it up. Sometimes it takes a while. Sometimes they don't have the ability because they're upset to face those issues, and we try to work with them and help them. With regard to evidence, there's long-term evidence, and that's what a suicide note would come into. Some of what we call short-term evidence would be drugs that are collected. They're held for a period of time, and then they're destroyed. Illicit drugs, narcotics, sometimes that is collected by either the law enforcement or us. There are times when they don't take it initially, but we have to collect it. We collect it, we hold it until we can turn it over to them, or until we have additional testing. Unfortunately, there's a lot, and you see the news articles on this, where we have pills that look like pharmaceutical pills, like Percocet 30s or oxycodone, and they turn out to be fentanyl. When we're examining them in our forensic facility, we can then look at that, and we see inconsistencies. We then turn it over. Sometimes that has to be sent out for testing. When testing is done, biological specimens that could be evidence is destroyed. Illicit drugs are destroyed during that testing because they're consumed. So that's kind of the difference in what all of these different things are.
Appreciate that explanation. In terms of a suicide note, though, because, and unfortunately, family who is here tonight, it's not the only suicide that has happened here in the county. I'm sure have there been other situations like this where folks have wanted a suicide note back from a loved one who tragically took their own life, and how that has...
33 years, this is my first time to deal with a situation like this. We give families copies. If they ask for the original back, we explain to them why we're going to retain it as evidence. And in, I would say, 99.9% of the cases, people have no problem with it. We give them a full copy of everything we have.
Madam President, I have one more
Yes.
question. You made a statement that it's the first time in 33 years a situation like this has occurred. Considering that this is not a law and it's more of a recommendation to keep it, and considering the fact that your judgment obviously being valued, but assuming the fact that their family is not being suspected in this crime of suicide, would you be open to the concept of making a special exception to something that is clearly something meaningful to them, considering that they are the most pertinent victim in this situation? I understand you have a profession that you have standards that you like to live up to. As long as you don't think you're doing any harm to this particular case, and that's the one we're talking about. I understand you have a system of methods that you try to subscribe to, but for this particular situation, would you make an exception, knowing that it means a lot to the family who just lost a loved one?
I understand. With all due respect, I guess the way, and I'm not this is not a no, I'm saying to you, we have a policy on how we deal with that for the reason, and we have a policy, so we follow that policy. What I would say to you is I would consult legal counsel, our solicitor, Missy, who's here with me tonight, and I would also, I have the letter from the state solicitor, and I guess my response to that, I don't have an answer for you this evening.
You don't have to have one tonight either. I'm just asking you to consider, because a couple things I don't like to do. I don't like to say, well, we're going to make an ordinance saying that you have to do it. I think that's overstepping. I also think that, having a policy in place and following it, adhere without any type of reconsideration, considering the circumstances, is also boneheaded. So I think consider your circumstances. This is your job. I think you have the most at stake, but I also think the family members have the most invested in what this all means. And I think that if you think there's no crime where they could be the suspect and that letter could have DNA on it that might be pertinent, I don't think that's the case, just judging by what I saw. And if you can consult with your solicitor and consult with what you need to consult with personally, and that'd be something you'd be open to, I think it would go a long way with the family.
Understand?
Mr. Lysak, and I can talk about that another time.
I was going to mention
needing that answer.
something similar, sorry.
Mr. Lysak, have you concluded your investigation on this case yet?
Yes, our investigation is concluded. And if I could just clarify something, when in explaining how things can change or people come back, over my tenure here, it's surprising how many times a family who doesn't get along with another family member will come forward and say, oh, I think such and such did this, or we hear all kinds of stuff. It's amazing. And that is why we have a policy such as that. And again, I'm just, explaining that why I'm steadfast in how we've always handled things over my tenure here. Policies are developed to be followed so that when there's question later, I didn't deviate from it. I'm not saying if legal counsel tells me that, in some circumstance or something different, then, I'm there.
Thank you, Madam President. I was actually going to ask the question, Madam President, that you did, if the case was concluded, because in thinking of where the family is at right now, and since it has been concluded, going back to my initial question about keeping property indefinitely, especially something like a suicide note, if this is concluded at this point and there is the high probability and likelihood that this case would likely not be reopened, I'm wondering why in this certain situation we couldn't deviate from that policy. That's where I'm coming from with this. Can't imagine what the family is going through, and I respect you wanting to stick to a policy that you've had since, I believe you said 1992, correct?
Yes, sir.
And this is the first situation like this.
Yes, sir.
I respect where you are coming from. However, since this is concluded at this point, and there doesn't seem to be, based on presentation tonight, that this is going to be reopened at all with regard to any sort of DNA type of evidence or anything like that. If there's any way we could possibly get that note back to the family, I think that'd be a good thing for them. So it's just my position here.
Can I just say something? I'm more than willing to hear what you have to say. I don't think we're here to solve it. I think we're here to ask questions. I think he has counsel.
Yeah.
I think the family has made their case, and I think they will determine a resolution. You're hearing that counsel's wanting you to, but I don't think we have any authority to say you should do this or that. He has an attorney to do so. We're just here to listen tonight. But go ahead, Ms. Rubin.
Briefly, I just want to explain something. I mean, I'm certainly going to talk to Mr. Lysak about this. We have been talking about it. But I just want to, I don't know how clear it was. Maybe it was clear. But even though the investigation is done and complete, none of us in this room know what this man go through in his job. I could never do his job, and he's done it for 33 years. But a year from now, somebody could come out of the woodwork and say, oh, but, hey, maybe this, maybe that. And then if the note's given back, that evidence is gone. The DNA, whatever. It's likely that that's not going to happen, but it could. And so he has to be careful, and that's why the policy was put in place. Now the question is, if we make an exception this time, do you then have a slippery slope? Do we, now somebody here, well, you did it here, do you do it? So those are the things that we have to look at, and they're going, he's trying to do the best that he can. He's doing the best that he can. You can't please everyone, but he and I will certainly talk about this.
Just Mr. Lezak's credit, Mrs. Zagalis, I sympathize with your situation, but professionally, Mr. Lezak has nothing to gain by giving that away. Like Mr. Rouge is saying, like, statute of limitation stays open, something could come up. Professionally, not knowing personally the situation, I understand the situation that you're in. I would just ask you, just go home, talk, discuss. If the situation bears like you can do it, then it would be a great thing, but I understand the professional situation that you're in as well. Thank you.
Can I just say something?
Yes.
I thank you very much for coming forward, and thank you, too, for being here. I just wish that Ms. Singalis could have gotten the self-written obituary sooner. I think that may have been something that really upset her, And I wish, like, moving forward, I hope that if you ever find that again, it's provided to the family immediately.
So what I can tell you in my response to that is, in our written policy, that is to be turned over to the family, a copy of that right away. That is evidence as well, as opposed to personal property. So yes, that was to be turned over. So my first, unfortunately, and I take full responsibility as the coroner, and I'm not, casting that responsibility to anyone else. It was an oversight on the deputy's part. There were 2 deputies that went to the house, a nighttime deputy and a supervisor went out, and that wasn't done. And that's all I can say on that. It's a personnel issue that I did resolve, and I could assure you that I'll do my best that that won't happen again. It's not something that should happen. It should not happen. And that is in writing. So, with that said, I've looked at all these situations many times over for all the years that I have done this. And sadly, nobody we deal with is ever happy.
And it's very hard. Thank you.
I'm not here to cause any more pain to her, but, there are many details on every case that we look at very carefully.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. McClure, do you have anything else for your report?
Good evening, council. A pleasure, as always, to be here with you. Hard work, right, and diligence. We are about to preserve our 20,000th acre of farmland in Northampton County. We are up to 266 farms. That's a lot of hard work. And that is the #1 weapon in our arsenal against warehouse proliferation. And I really encourage everybody who's watching the YouTube now to drive around Northampton County and see those wonderful preserved farmland signs that we have. They're beautiful and they're everywhere. And it's only going to continue to multiply as time goes by. And we really are, because of the work we've all done for many years, we are maintaining the bucolic parts of our county as well as we possibly can. So I just wanted to let you know we're really, really killing it in farmland preservation, and it's a lot of hard work, and it really is one of our only weapons against warehouse proliferation. I want to tell you a little bit about the election. There were 23,684 applications issued for mail-in ballots. Applications returned were the same, and ballots sent were 23,620. Ballots returned so far are 5,531, with 5,431 recorded thus far. The recorded thus far is because there were defects on some of the ballots. The parties, the party chairs, the Republican Party chair and the Democratic Party chair have been informed. And we are reaching out as well. Elections Division is reaching out to the folks who maybe missed the date or had some kind of facial issue like that to correct them. So hopefully that number will rise next time I report it to you. I wanted to give you a quick update on the drop boxes. The rotundas received 113 so far. And our big winner is the DHS building, always on Emmerich Boulevard, 230. The 911 Center is 109. Bethlehem City Hall, 99. East Allen Township, 25. Washington Township, 11. So, they're glad we went through all that to get a drop box there, right? And the Fowler Center, 2. So 2 have been dropped off at the Fowler Center for a total of 589. This week, we have begun redistributing some of the remaining community development block grant money that we can use in low to moderate census tracts to help the food banks who are experiencing that part of that $1 billion federal cut to the USDA. And this week, we went to the Slater Family Center at Bangor, and we delivered a $10,000 check to them. And we went to the Link in Wilson area, and we delivered a $10,000 check to them. And just today, we were at Penargil, and we delivered a $10,000 check to them. And at each place, each food bank does not know how they're going to make up for the cuts. So we'll do our best, and we'll continue to scrounge as the remainder of the year goes on. But in the future, I think you're going to have to look very hard at sources of revenue to, we won't be able to replace federal funds. I mean, that's just, that's not going to happen. We have limited resources in the county, right? And that, we will always start from that position. But what we can scrounge up, we should, and we can properly use, we should use it. And finally, we have repurposed, also through a CDBG program, we've repurposed a CYF van that was going out of service, as we did with Shiloh. You know, the van that I talked to you about, we granted to Shiloh using this program, using the CDBG money to pay off the balance of the CYF on the van. We donated one to Nazareth Ambulance today. As you know, Nazareth Ambulance has the contract at Graysdale, and they do a tremendous job there. But Nazareth Ambulance has a lot of people in the Nazareth area that need to be transported that aren't reimbursable. So they're going to assign a driver to the van and help folks get around that for trips that aren't reimbursable but are necessary, and these folks don't have any other way to get there. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. McClure? Mr. Giovanni?
It's, Nicole, what is it? It's low. 50. Just 50.
I just want to say, as a member of Links for Wilson, thank you so much. It's so appreciated.
Yeah, and they do run a pretty efficient operation there.
And it's a fabulous group, and we're
And
doing
I
a lot of
encourage,
good work.
look, I encourage them all to come and, they all have CYF contracts, so that's where the bulk of their money comes from for their programs. But I encourage them all to come to you and talk with you about their needs as they're going forward, because maybe even if we can't go, I'm looking forward into the future, if we can't fit them into the DCED budget, maybe at the end of the year, if there's any money left in the council contingency fund, you know, a couple of these pantries could get a $10,000 grant. So it's always something to think about. And the Slater Family Network really, I was blown away. I was really impressed. I said, I can't believe this is the first time you're inviting me here. It was really impressive. I encourage everybody to go to all these things. They're doing God's work. Anything else?
Madam President?
Yes.
Mr. McClure, is it still the administration's recommendation to rebid the parking garage?
So we are meeting about that now, and we will have a compromise suggestion for you in the near future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any old business to discuss? Hearing none, we'll move into new business. We have the introduction of an ordinance entitled, an ordinance amending Northampton County Ordinance Number 141-1998, also known as the Northampton County Real Estate Rules and Regulations Ordinance. May I have a sponsor? Second. Sponsor?
Second.
A public hearing, debate, and possible vote will be held at May 15th, 2025 meeting. Next, we have the introduction of an ordinance entitled, an ordinance of the County Council of Northampton County authorizing the purchase of approximately 43.36 acres, more or less, of real property by the County of Northampton in the Borough of Stoffertown, Pennsylvania, from the Judith L. Bauer Trust. Would someone like to sponsor?
Sponsor.
Public hearing, debate, and possible vote will be held at the May 15, 2025 meeting. Next, we have the introduction of an ordinance entitled, an ordinance of the County Council of Northampton County authorizing the county to enter into a lease agreement between Northampton County and Service Electric TV, Inc. for the county to lease space at the 1829 Savercool Avenue in Salisbury Township. May I have a sponsor? I'll sponsor. Can I have a second? Public hearing, debate, and possible vote will be held at the May 15th, 2025 meeting. Is there any other new business to discuss?
I just want to remind everyone that there is a mass shredding event this Saturday at Emmerich Boulevard.
Do you know if there's going to be an electronics one this year? Where's the boss? The boss is not here. Well, sometimes, and sometimes communities do, and sometimes we do. Just,
I think, just very quickly, I think is it electronics you're talking about?
yes, sir.
I think the municipalities do them, and we help with those.
Have more electronics than shred, so there you go. Inquiring minds needed to know. Any other new business to discuss? Thank you for that announcement. Any council committee reports? Mr. Warren?
Yes. Madam President, the Economic Development Committee met today at 3:30, specifically had a wonderful and passionate presentation from the Executive Director, Jennifer Long, from the Easton Public Library, and we also had a discussion about how this council may want to really start engaging housing issues and what we can do from a county policy perspective in the future to see whether there's ordinances, any type of resolutions that we can potentially pass in the future, talk about, debate, and really gauge the housing issue in the future. So that's my report.
Thank you. Anyone else? Liaison reports? I'm looking, I'm thinking. Okay. County clerk, council clerk report.
Nothing.
Solicitor?
Nothing.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.